Thank you, committee. Thank you, Representative Armstrong. RS 27695, Representative Moyle. Representative Moyle.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mike Moyle, District 14.
Go ahead.
I've been trying to think about what to say on this RS and what to talk about, and I've enjoyed the discussion earlier today. I think we can all agree that we would like to lessen the burden on our citizens when they purchase their food. I think we can all agree that's what we want. We want to take away that burden on our citizens. In 2015, myself and Representative Bedke, of all people, and Senator Bear brought a bill forward to take the sales tax off of food. So what's the difference between that bill and what you've seen here today? That bill did a lot of things different, and we'll talk about them in a minute because a lot of them are encompassed in this bill. But I want to continue a little bit and talk about why I think that taking sales tax off of food is a bad idea before I get into the IRS and explain the IRS. I was with a guy the other day that was a bigwig for a big company that sells food in this state, and he told me, I asked him, what do you think of this? He said, we don't care. In fact, he says, I hope you do it because our profit margins will go up. I said, what do you mean by that? He says, we look at sales of food and the price item. We don't look at the sales tax. We look at the total price. And if you take away a 6% burden on the food on the bottom end, that gives us more to work on the top end. He said, we do studies, we interview people, we send out surveys, we find out where we can tax, what we can charge for a food item, and then that's what we charge. And he said, every store is different. He said a store in one part of the state may have a different price for a product than another part of the state. That concerned me. Number two, when I was a younger guy, I actually had hair on my head. I worked for an outfitter and I was a guide. And when I would pick these out-of-state people up at the airport, where's the first place they wanted to go? The grocery store. Because there was stuff that we didn't provide that they wanted that they purchased at that store and they paid a tax on it. So that concerned me. The other thing is there's a certain group of people in this state, the recreators, that pay this tax, and there's a certain group of people in the state that are here illegally that pay this tax. It's probably the only tax they paid, so that concerns me. And so that's another reason to keep sales tax on food. There's an old saying, the best tax, and I said this the other day, is the one that's paid by somebody else, and that's the case you have with sales tax on groceries. That's why you have a $110 million hole as we try to take sales tax off groceries. Having said all that, if it's the decision of this body, this legislature, to proceed with the idea of removing sales tax on groceries, then we need to go back to what Senator Bear and myself did in 2015, and let's discuss what those impacts are. First, when you take sales tax off of groceries, you raise everybody's income tax in the state. Your effective rate right now in Idaho is 6.7, not the 6.925 that the higher rate is. And the reason it's 6.7 is because of the grocery tax credit. That $100 bill that every man, woman, and child, even Representative Giddings and her two beautiful little girls, get $100 for each one of those little girls. That's a tax credit that if they don't owe the money, the state sends back to them. That's why the effective rate's lower. So in this RS, we lower the tax rates on income taxes down to 6.4. We do that by making a flat tax and saying that everybody over $4,000 pays 6.4 instead of this 6.925 that the upper brackets pay now. Second, when you take the sales tax off of groceries, and both of the previous RSs you had before you raise the percentage that we pay to the locals in regards to sales tax. A lot of people don't realize, and when you hear people talking about how the state gives unfunded mandates to cities and counties, I want to pull what little hair I have left out of my head because it's a bunch of hogwash. We send back over $610 million a year to the local governments. And by raising that amount, I remember everybody in radio land that's listening, if you are, when you pay anything and buy anything with sales tax today, 11.5% of it goes back to the local governments. It's one of the reasons, by the way, I think that we can do something on property taxes because they get back so much money. But 11.5. The two previous bills raised that to 12.4. When was the last time that was adjusted? I can tell you the last time it was adjusted. It was adjusted when we did House Bill 1 under Governor Risch, and we adjusted that up because we were worried about keeping the locals whole, and what we did was give them a bunch of money. It was a mistake. This RS that I'm presenting says we're going to keep you whole. So it says that we're not going to move the 11.5% up to 12.5%, but we're going to keep you whole for 3 years. It takes less than a year to grow out of it. This year, your sales tax revenue are up over, I think, year over year so far, over 61 million. So that's 6 million right there. So instead of giving them back a big check, we keep them whole. The last thing that this does different than the others that just said, we're going to pay for it out of the tax relief fund. That fund today has about 50 million. It'll continue to grow. Now, there's a lot more I could say. I think it's important that we have this discussion today, and I like that we had this discussion. When you compare the definition of SNAP, Representative Giddings does a good job of trying to thread the needle. Representative Armstrong goes down basically the wick, which his bill was actually a tax increase. This bill uses the SNAP definition with one exemption. The number 2, 1 and 2, depending on what state you're in, item purchased by people that are considered groceries or pop. Do you think that we should take the sales tax off of some of our good Senate friends' Diet Coke? I think they ought to pay the tax on their Diet Coke. So this takes out sugared pops and sugared drinks. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that that I have the opportunity to return this RS to you and not introduce it. I don't want it introduced. As we go down the road of sales tax on groceries, I still think the best thing for Idaho is the grocery tax credit, and I've come full circle because I used to think it was this way. But if you do the homework, you talk to the experts, you take sales tax off of groceries, you're going to give a profit margin to local government businesses. You're going to hurt Idaho families that don't realize it. In fact, Representative Armstrong brought it up. If you live in Payette, you can go across the river and buy your item sales tax free, and you get a tax relief right now. Now you're going to raise his taxes because he has nowhere else to buy food. There's nobody that will sell groceries and fruit when they're Payette that I know of. Maybe there is now. And the same can be said in Lewiston. Maybe a quick story. You know, I had the opportunity to go to Lewiston the other day. It's been a while back, actually, and we had a little town hall meeting there, a few people, and the number one issue was taking sales tax off of groceries. So I asked them, how many of you pay sales tax on your groceries? Well, most of them shopped at Winco. They were paying the sales tax on groceries, but some did go over to the Walmart and to the Costco on the other side. And when asked why they did that, they said most of them shopped in Idaho. It was cheaper. And by the way, those 2 buildings would have been in Idaho if the Democrat City Council of Lewiston would have let them build in Idaho. Businesses don't make their decisions on whether or not there's sales tax on groceries. What you need to do and what I need to do is figure out what's best for Idahoans and what gives more Idahoans back the best relief. And I think that the bill to increase the credit's the best way to do that. I think it helps all Idahoans and not illegal aliens and non-Idahoans that are visiting here. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask you to withdraw my RS.
So it's you're in your possession, so it's withdrawn.